Alrighty, it's just gone 4 p.m. here in Brighton, UK. I want to say welcome to everyone that's joined us. We might see a few more people filter in. I know that it can be a bit of a slow process sometimes logging in. So thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. In just a moment, I'll be handing over to Michael Ball, Perform Product Manager, to present. I'm just here as his assistant today. I'll be looking after the chat and making sure that he stops to breathe and take a drink of water every now and again and interrupt him with questions. So if you do have any questions, do pop them there in the chat. I will keep count of them and we'll try and cover off as many as we have time for. Just a little administration up. First up, we are recording this session. It will be available via the community, Totara community, probably tomorrow. So it will be available for you to re-watch. We would ask you should keep this recording in the session just for partners internally at this stage. This is very much a sneak peek into some bits and pieces that are coming up, and it's for our Totara partners only at this point. So I will, I'll just say that Richard Chambry, all of you, and welcome David, Richard. I see now that Richard's clarified that all of the extra Richards are in fact other Chambry staff members, so welcome to you guys. So I will now hand over to Michael Ball, and I will mute myself, you'll be pleased to know, and I'll be there in the chat. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Meredith, appreciate it. So hi everybody, see 40 of you so far, discounting some of the Richards. So today my session is to cover some of what you guys may call the less, I'm going to quote Meredith here, the less sexy stuff, but it's what covers what makes performance activities work. So in the past at the partner events, we have shared the end user screens, what they'll see, or what we hope they'll see for timelines, for side panels, lots of information. But really, the reason we have built appraisals and 360 feedback from scratch isn't to be able to do that. It's to be able to meet all of the user needs that we've had feedback from yourselves in the past about, and for the things that we can see our competitors doing. So the bits I'm going to cover today are very much focused on the administration, with some light touch on what the end user will see. So just to cover that to begin with, and just take you into it now. So the problems we're trying to address largely boil down to 3 bullet points. So a lack of flexibility in this existing solution. By flexibility, I mean a lot of things. So I mean the flexibility around what happens if a user changes their position, their manager changes, they move to another area of the organization, they leave. Also around start and end dates, flexibility around that, and the ability to correct things partway through a process. So all really boiled down to flexibility, but the old solution wasn't capable of handling that. The ability to report across activities, so the ability to say your start and end of year appraisal, what did you answer one point of the year, what did you answer another, or then again, what did you answer from one year to the next, and have things improved, have your ratings improved, which the data structure just didn't allow for in the old product. And then the manual effort to create that, so the creation of a single template each time that you needed to start again, and probably, to be honest, a whole bunch of other issues, but those 3 things very much cover it. And then I suppose another one I'd add is the ability to meet the more modern approaches to performance management with continuous reviews, with regular reviews. So yeah, they're the key issues that we're seeing, that we're approaching with what I'm hoping to share with you now. So our new feature is called performance activities. So a performance activity will service the 360 feedback process, appraisals and check-ins. So rather than having 3 separate features, it's one flexible feature which encompasses all of those things. And in the future, in our roadmap, we'll cover more than that. So they will be a lot more flexible than just servicing these 3 processes. And eventually we will give you the ability to create your own types of activities. So they offer the approach is designed to enable organizations to shape the process in the system rather than the system shaping their processes, to enable regular and recurring activities, to have dynamic start and end dates, reuse of questions, and that reuse of questions then enabling much more powerful reporting, the effective handling of change, as I mentioned, change to all of the things I mentioned before, and then again, I'm repeating myself, but the reporting across, so being able to aggregate reporting across questions, being able to look across years, and that enables a whole lot of things, either for the end user themselves to see their progress, for the organization to see the progress of particular areas of the business, and also to handle looking at the success of the process and seeing where that process falls down. So excuse this image. This is to stop me from tripping over myself. It's not pretty, but I think it serves a purpose. So in old world, you would have an activity or an appraisal, for example, which was one template, and all users were directly related to that template. So when you completed your assignment of users, they were all assigned to the initial template. The issue that caused is when there were changes within the organization, you usually had to close that template down, start from scratch, because either you needed to change something to the template, you needed to change your cycle, or it made it difficult to handle changes to the individual users. So with performance activities, you will still have a template called, for example, a performance activity. And let's say we've called this start of year. But when you assign users to have a copy of that, what happens is we create something that we're calling a subject instance. So the subject is the person that the activity is about. So you're giving 360 feedback about Michael. From that, participant instances are created. So there's an instance of this activity created for every single person that is taking part in this activity. So the subject, myself, I get a copy and an instance. My manager, who has been told to participate, gets one, and maybe the appraiser. The roles extend beyond that, but I'll use the standard roles that everyone's used to at the moment. None of the work that happens below this activity gets fed back up into this original. This is just the template that we've used to create. So us completing the activity feeds back into the subject instance. So the subject instance isn't something that everybody works on. They work on their own versions of this, and then that they feed up into the subject instance to record progress, to record access to the activity, and to record the answers. What this allows is change to the users. So for example, if at the start of the year, the manager is John Smith, John Smith leaves the company, before you would have had great difficulty removing that user and adding a new one. Whereas what happens now is we can close down this manager's instance, create a new instance for the new manager, and then they can carry on with that. And the same with the appraiser and all types of users. And it also accounts for a lot of other use cases, but on the simplest one, it accounts for being able to change people, close their activities down, and move on with the new structure that's in place. I feel like there's going to be questions after showing that, but Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong.
You are wrong in the right kind of way. Oh wait, no, Richard Chambery, number 1, said, Mike, when you say carry on, you mean continue with existing form, not a new form.
So it relates still to this same subject instance, but the manager would start their own version of that form. So the first manager can finish their form. So you've got options where you can carry on completing it, even though you're no longer the manager, and close it down, or it can be manually closed down and the new manager could start working on a new performance activity.
Would Staff have to restart the form.
No, because it's their participant instance. So the leaving of this manager has no impact on what I've done as a subject.
Great. That's not from me, that's from Richard. That's all the questions that are in the chat for now.
Perfect. So I'm going to move on to the configuration of that. I'm not going to stick with this screen because I've just dropped this in here. I'm going to use a much better quality image. So this is where we start to handle some of the complexity around the allocation. At this point in time with this screen I'm showing you, you've created a performance activity, so the very top level. You have created the content that sits within it, so the name, the description, the questions that will be asked, the roles that will answer those questions, the roles that can view those questions, and any other configuration. So this comes to the point where you are assigning users to this activity and creating their instances of that activity. So the first thing that will happen from this process is a subject instance will be created, and then whoever fills those the roles within that activity, so your manager, your appraiser, your peers, would then get their own activity instances. So the first step is to add the audiences, positions, or organizations that you want to have subject instances created for. And then you move down into the area where I suppose the vast majority of the complexity comes in. So the first thing to highlight is the first thing that this is controlling is not the date your exact instance gets created, unless you configure it in a very particular way. This first level of control gives you when will activity instances be created. So what we're saying is that, so these are all toggles. So you toggle between these two, between these two, between these two, and between these two. I'll start with due date because it's the easiest. A due date is setting, kind of as it says on the tin, when that would be due to be completed. So you can see in another example that I'll show in a minute, you can add a due date and add control over the due dates. But the first and I suppose the more complex, because of it's completely different to how things were done before, is you can have a limited time frame that the subject instance will get created, or an open-ended. These toggles control what you see below. So rather than always seeing all configuration options on the screen, you're presetting some of the things that you know you want to control the content that shows below that. So if we've gone with an open-ended window for creation, we say that activity instance, if you're in this audience, an instance of this activity will get created for you as the subject from the 1st of January 2018, and any time you're added to the audience afterwards, an instance would get created. So it wouldn't matter if it was 10 years later that you were added to that audience, you'd get an instance of this activity created for you. Unless, as you see above, the instance creation is paused. The second toggle display is how you select the date frame in which this period works. So you can set a fixed date frame, so from the 1st of January 2018 to the 1st of January 2019. Or what you can do is you can select dynamic. So what this does is allows you to take data sources from within the platform and base everybody's creation date off of that dynamic date. So an example would be your start date within the organization, potentially the last time you completed the same activity type as this, so on and so forth. So they're extensible. You can add different data sources once we're live, and we'll be extending that in the future. The creation frequency, so do you only get an activity once, or does you get new activities on a repeating basis? So this is to work mostly for things like check-ins, or for people that do once a year appraisals and don't want to create them again each year. So this bit here controls the repeating enabled. So there are 3 options for repeating. So you can say an activity will repeat every 14 days after the creation of the previous activity. What that enables is for you to have as many activities open as you wanted of of as many instances of this activity open as you wanted, with no control over whether it has to be completed first. The second option hopefully says what it needs to, is the previous activity instance is complete and it's created more than 14 days ago. And then the final is every however many days after the completion of a previous instance. And from there, you can also control the creation period end. So even though you have an open-ended, you might want to say that every individual within this audience only gets 3 instances over that time frame. And just to quickly skip to a different version of this where different options have been selected. So as you can see here, it's limited time frame, but it's dynamic. So instances of the activity will be created for a user who meets the assignment criteria during the period, however many days until, from 0 until however many days after, and then you could select the employee start date, for example. And participants are required to submit their responses within 14 days after their instance was created. So just one quick thing to highlight before I ask for questions on this section is what you see here seems, I think, quite simple, but it's an extremely complex set of scenarios all baked into one area of the platform. That's why we've introduced new element types, but also this isn't just a standard form. So this form is a lot more complicated to build. The main reason for that is we provide guidance on what the impact is. So the action that a user is completing as an admin is completing the sentence above. So what we're trying to do with perform and what we hope to then push back into learn is a lot more guidance for administrators on what the impact of what they're doing is, but also not just displaying every option under the sun to them all the time and allowing people to filter down their experience to what's relevant to what they want to achieve.
Thanks, Mike. There's no questions at this stage in the chat. Oh, I knew that would prompt it. Thanks, David. So David Shaw asks, will content from one instance be available to be used in other instances, e.g. have a 4 weekly catch up, each has its own check-in instance? Oh, you just wanted me to say check-in, David. But I want to see what was written in the last one. So do you want me to read that again?
I think I get it. So we're talking about week 1, I answer all of the questions. Week 2, I want to see what I said in week 1, so it helps me answer my questions.
Okay, did that answer your question, David?
No, that's more a question for David, just to make sure that I am understanding it properly. If that's the case, we are replicating the redisplay question and working through that. And also in version 2 of performance activities, we are going to have implementing the side panel, which is the ability to access data from all the other performance activities. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to look, you'll have a side panel that pops out within your appraisal. So I'll show you in a second, within your appraisal. That will allow you to look across different activity types. So you'll be able to filter on 360 feedback, check-in or appraisal, look for goal data, look for competency data, and in the long run, look for learning data, and then review that while you're completing your form. So reporting will allow you to see one to the next, but in the first version, you won't be able to see it within the activity.
Okay, that was in fact his question. He says okay. From Chambery. Hello again. When you make a repeat instance of the activity, can you clone the previous copy to retain all answers to build on?
The activity sits there not changed. So when it's repeating, it's pulling in the same questions from before. So when you repeat instance.
Oh, sorry, he meant.
Oh, the answer, same question as David then, I think. So I hope. So no, not in version 1. You wouldn't be able to copy your answers from instance to instance in version 1.
Okay. Question from Peter. Would it be possible to create repeat instances related not to start and or complete of an instance, but related to the calendar? For example, start a new instance on the 1st of January next year or the beginning of next quarter.
The beginning of next quarter. So we haven't got those options in at the moment. I'm just thinking about it now. So every 14 days after Christmas, so create an instance not related to start and end. So you could say every 14 days after the creation of a previous instance. So you're saying once a month or every Tuesday of the month, for example. Every first Tuesday of the month, you create a new instance, for example.
Yeah, or the 1st of January every year.
Yeah. So we don't have that at the moment. So I suppose you could achieve that with every 365 days after the creation of the previous instance. But we haven't got specific drop downs for, as you say, particular dates.
But you could enter the date figure corresponding to a year or a quarter.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Tentatively going to say no further questions. Okay, I think we're good. Please proceed.
Perfect. I feel like that's been understood. That has a lot less questions than I had anticipated. So feel free to ask questions about it later on in this presentation. So just to drop down into what the user would see. So we have here a screen, bear with me a second, I'm going to pull up the original images. So here we have the end user view. So you may have many roles within the system. So you can select to filter based on the activities based on the role that you want to participate as. You have a tab for your activities and a tab for activities about other people. You can see the number of your activities that are on target and the number that are overdue based on the due date that's been set.
And Michael, can you zoom in a tiny bit? That's a little teeny
Yeah.
for us. Thank you.
Go for 2 seconds.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. And then from there, you can extend each of the activities to see the sections that are sit within that activity. You can see the participants that are going to be involved in each section. And then you can see the progress that people are making. So you'll see there's 2 statuses here. There is not started and complete and in progress. And then there's closed and open. So there are configuration settings up front which allow you to control this. So this is whether people have started interacting with the form, and this is whether it's available to edit any further. So there are 2 settings. One is if something is complete, then it becomes closed. And the other is you can complete it. So you've answered all of the questions, but it never closes and therefore never locks for editing. So you have 2 statuses. The first, as I say, is whether you've performed the actions required of you, and the second is dependent on the configuration setting mixed with what people have done within the form. So this enables 2 very different workflows. One is enable editing forevermore, and the first one is close on completion so that we have a locked set of records. Any questions on that?
There is nothing in the chat at this time.
Perfect.
Oh, they're voice activated apparently. David asks, can you leave something open for editing by one person but is closed by the manager at the end of the year?
No, we were introducing manual closure. So I suppose yes is the answer actually. Sorry to thinking that through. So you can leave it open and have manual closure, and you'll be able to add closure to it's basically a permission within the system. So manual closure will be available if you wanted to do that. I'm intrigued about the workflow for that, so I might bother you afterwards if that's okay.
Everyone needs a little closure. All right. And David says, absolutely no problem. Sean asks, can you copy an activity instance from one site to another site?
An activity instance. So not the instances, but the overall activity, yes. So you can't copy my version of the activity instance that's been created for me, but you can copy the template that then was assigned to people.
Okay, and just a follow-up from Richard, to confirm on the previous discussion, can you unlock a closed form?
Yes, yes you can. So there, as I say, that's a permission again, but you can unclose a form, and then you have an option of what that does and whether it uncompletes, or whether it just leaves it open overall. Yeah.
Will PDF screenshots be available when the form is opened and is open and closed?
So that's similar to the snapshots that we have now. So there's print option. There'll be print options available. So you'll be able to save to PDF. But what they won't do is save within the platform as they do at the moment.
Okay, it appears. Oh, can you save to PDF open and closed forms? I think that's
Yes.
good.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Excellent. And a smiley face. Brilliant. Good work, Mike. Please continue. That's it for the
So
question.
not a lot left to show. So this is a very simple version of what a form will look like for the end user. I would rather show that one because it's much more attractive. So at the top, you see there's a panel that will be configurable depending on how much information you want to show in the form. So previously there was a question type, which was user data, and you could select the individual pieces of user data you wanted to show. We've removed that as being a question, added it as a setting so that you can display user data at the top of the screen, which will also print out with the form. And then you're shown your relationship to the user. On the left-hand side shows your progress through the sections. And then within this section that we're talking about, you can take your responses and you can see the responses from other users. This setting here is show other users' responses. This isn't anything crazy. All this is to do is to clean the screen for you. So it's not controlling if you ever see their responses. It's just to tidy the screen so that if you've got a lot of participants in each question and you need to concentrate on your responses, so less if important when it's just a multiple choice like this, but more important when it's a long text answer and you're providing a long answer, it enables you to have a clear view, which you can always turn back on. And not shown here, but just to make clear, there will be a separate save from a submit, so that users can work partway through the form, make a save, go off and carry on with their job as they're going, come back, finish off, and then submit that. And there'll be configuration options around when other users can see your responses. So is it as you submit each section, or is it when the overall form is completed? And a lot more configuration options around visibility of answers overall, so whether you want to make things anonymous as well. And just to cover as well, I suppose, so I've talked about sections, so each of these things are sections with questions within. In the old functionality, you had an appraisal, stages, pages, and then questions. Within performance activities, you'll have a performance activity, sections, and questions. So you're skipping the pages, but what you have control over is line breaks, so you can control the layout and the way this is viewed. But each section has its own URL and is reviewed on a single page per set of questions within a section. That.
There's a question. Are you able to go to any section in any order?
So yep, this will allow this sidebar will allow navigation through the sections.
Okay, and that's currently it for questions.
Cool. To be honest, that was it from me. I'm going to show one other page because this has not taken as long as I expected. So apologies, everybody. I'm going to show one of the administration screens, if this will let me close it.
Well, Mike's bringing up that screen. If you do have any other questions, not specifically on what we've seen or anything else, of course you can post here in the chat. We can try and cover it, or of course there's the product forums in the community. How do you feel about multitasking, Mike? There's another question.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right. From David, can you push changes in the main template down to an existing instance?
So all changes that will be made to the main template only impact, sorry, that's slip, only impact future instances that are created. So no, in progress instances cannot be edited. It will only be future instances that are created.
And Kenny, hi Kenny, is asking, what about notifications relating to these performance activities?
I think they'll be there. So sorry, that was a poor answer. So the main notifications that we're looking at the moment to be in there are on assignment. So when your instance gets created, around when your version of it is overdue or coming up to be due, and I think that they're the main ones. So what isn't in version 1 at the moment is phased participation through the performance activity. So when we draw in phased participation, which by that I mean that within each section you control who answers and in which order, then there will be extended notifications to cover the first person has completed, now it's your time to come in, and so on and so forth. For version 1 without phased participation, the notifications are quite simple, but it would be interesting to understand if there was any more to that question.
Okay, they're rolling in now. So Tomas, hi, are there any new question types being added, or will they be the same as current?
So we're replicating the same as current with some improvements to the existing questions. We're looking at a more complicated aggregation question, and that the way we're looking at it at the moment is two different aggregation questions, one that aggregates responses across activities, and another that handles handles when you are not allowed to see who responded. So it would aggregate the content and show you outputs of that content. But apart from those, it will be a replication of what's already there.
Okay, Mr. Shore is asking, if a manager changes, does the old manager, I think you mean previous manager, info stay with the instance that other people can see?
I'm just thinking it through. So no, they will still be able. So in my instance, I will still be able to see what my original manager responded.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking, David?
If the manager changes, does the previous manager info stay with the instance that other people can see?
Yes.
Okay. And Kenny is asking, how do these activities relate to things like competencies?
So I'm assuming you mean the competency review questions, and the appraisal. So I'm assuming you mean the review questions that previously would have sat within competencies within a learning plan, goals within a learning plan, that type of review question.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what he means.
Cool. So version 2 of Perform, which should be quite a short time afterwards, will include all of the review questions of other activities within the platform. the existing review questions have some major issues and some major faults, and they need some serious work. So it's not just a replication of the questions as it is with other elements or questions. It needs a complete rethink. So we are taking longer with that to make sure we get it right.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to show us the questions that enable users to bring in goals or required learning?
Same answer as before.
Okay. And how do these differ from learn, I guess?
So yeah, this is the thing. So our plan for these is that they will be, so I'll go a bit further into the detail. At the moment, the questions are very muddled. They don't, in our analysis, achieve what people are actually looking to do with them. So those questions need to be split and considered differently. So at the moment, when you look at your goals, for example, in the existing solution, you would have a goal review question where if the goal was updated after the activity was closed in Learn at the moment, outside of the activity, the result of that is that the data within the activity is updated, which is incorrect because you're looking for a point in time piece of information. So what we're looking to do is for goals, for competencies, as the main two, is split those questions up. So we have a goal review question, which is pulling in a snapshot of a point in time where the goal, you look at the result of the goal, you look at its current status, and you talk about it. And that's one type of question. You have a second question, which is review your goal and update the status. So you would be taking that goal, you would be looking at the status of it, you would be having a conversation, and then from within the activity, you would be able to update the status of that goal, and then that freezes that piece of data at that point in time. So, and the same with competencies. They're two very different things, which require a lot more investigation, I think, to make sure we get this right.
Okay, question from Jeremy relating to you talking about Perform 2.0 being expected a short time after the initial Perform release, and he's asking if what does a short time mean?
I think we're looking at 6 months, but Richard's going to be making some announcements this week, possibly the start of next week around release dates, and around our approach to that future stuff. So you will see an announcement from Richard coming soon.
And is it worth me digging up a link to the Academy courses while you talk about what's available now?
That would be great.
Okay. Do you want to provide a bit of blurb to what I'm about to post in the chat?
Yeah, of course. So we have been working alongside the feature set on a set of Academy courses for the moment for partners, but we would like, when the product goes live, to release that to subscribers as well. The courses cover, from non-product perspective, they cover best practice in performance management. So they cover the modern performance management practices that people within HR cover now. So how best to run check-ins, how best to set up your appraisals, and a lot further than that, to be completely honest. And then we also have feature-specific courses, which at the moment just cover competencies, but will shortly cover the new performance activities functionality as well. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
I just posted a link to a filter for the course catalogue in the community, which is just a partner-only courses relating to Perform. Related to 13. Yeah. But that covered everything.
Any further questions?
No. Compliments, in fact. Mark Edmund says that sounds great. Richard says good. Thanks. Any other questions? Please do post them in the chat.
I think it's good to highlight that there is more to come. We have a solid roadmap that we're looking to release. I'm hoping that what we've showed you now shows that we're covering a lot of the the issues that were there before, and it's a very big change from the functionality that was baked in to learn. So hopefully you'll be excited about what's to come afterwards.
That sounds like it from the comments in the chat. They're saying that it looks really good. So we'll start to wind down now. I see that a few people have dropped off already. Plenty of compliments pouring in for your work there, Mike, and the teams, Mike. So thank you everyone who joined. Again, this will be this is being recorded and will be loaded up in the community in the next day or two for you to review. Folks are just saying looks good, saying thank you, very nice, cheers. Anything to close off on there, Mike?
No, that's great. I appreciate everybody's time at the moment, and yeah, there will be updates in the next couple of days shared with the partner network, so that will all be with you soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining, and we hope to see you on the next partner webinar. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Goodbye.